Well, hello and welcome back to episode 19.
19. You sure?
We sure?
You told me it was 20 before we started.
We do this every time. What's that in a Roman numeral, Baz?
Hold on. X, V. Is it 19, did you say? X?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's X. XIV? Is it one before X?
XV.
It's one before X.
I.
Yeah, but is it? No, that's 80. Is it 4 and then, yeah,
18.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm right.
Yeah, but I thought you put what? Right.
I knew if I started like this, I'd win my first argument.
It's been a long couple of weeks. Right.
So,
first one, yeah.
So the first one back after a long time away, and we've got some really exciting stuff to announce in the future of the podcast. We'll have a new venue, we'll have a new podcast studio, and I suppose we could call it that we're going to have a new season of podcasts, a new theme to it. We're definitely not going to change the way that we work, as in we've got the Carl Pilkington.
We don't do any work. Sorry?
We've got the Carl Pilkington as in Baz, who doesn't know anything about mortgages, and then we've got me who should.
Yeah.
And we've got Alice.
Ricky Gervais.
Thank you. We've got Alice, who's the Jamie from Joe Rogan. So she's the fact checker. She's there to protect us, keep us right, and I'm sure she'll jump in and take the mick out of us a little bit.
So anything that's like libelous or anything's all on her shoulders, which is quite good. So we've got that on record, haven't we?
So we've actually, for the first time, we've got physical dates booked in that we can't get out of.
Yeah.
With banks, building societies, providers, and specialist packages, and that allows me to introduce Tom McSherry from Buildon. Hi, Tom.
How are you?
It's an absolute pleasure to get you in. I don't think these two will appreciate quite how big of a guest you are for this podcast and how well known you are in the industry. It is. Me and Tom, we've kind of worked together, and he certainly knows who I work with within Buildon. But we bumped into each other at a mortgage event at North Lakes, my gym, and I was the last one in, and I was late.
Sounds about right.
From the gym. But it was a cracking event, and what they did was it was called Best Kept Secrets, and it was dead interesting because it wasn't a PowerPoint. It wasn't just this is what you should know. It was about a little bit of myth busting of what each provider did. So we had banks, building sites, in the majority of them, if not all, are coming in here for a pod and they booked in off the back of it. And I just thought that is perfect and it fits what we do. So just to touch on the last one, Baz, because we need some people hopefully will listen to this continuously. What they won't know is that we haven't seen each other for 4 months or whatever it's been. So the last time we did this, we had a podcast and we were busting some myths, aiming at the remortgage market. And the myth, it was a nice and easy one because we used it to get the point across.
Yeah.
And it was you've got ages left to remortgage.
Yeah.
It's
a long time ago, wasn't it? Trying to think back. I learned that although you might have ages, it's better to get it done early doors and that anything can happen in between. Well, so I think we touched on rates changing and going up and down, how that can benefit you, but also you could miss out in the meantime. So the basics were get in quick.
Get in, lock it in.
But in the meantime, I've done my remortgaging, and that was a bit of a nightmare. And we ended up dropping onto a high rate because we hadn't got things sorted in time. So
I might have told you
first hand,
6 times to do that, Baz.
Yeah. Blame the wife. I'm always busy doing work for you. I've not got time to think about mortgages.
But that jump is huge.
But yeah, it's right. It's horrendous. Okay, I can't remember what we were on, but I think we ended up jumping onto something like 7%.
And you know, the crazy thing is, we're still within that. We're in that turmoil still, where people. I mean, obviously you've got inflation coming down, and then you're hoping that Bank of England's going to make an adjustment. But everyone is kind of waiting. What they don't realise is they don't get in there and lock it in. Then that today's rate is the worst rate they're going to have. If it gets better, brilliant. But no one can predict it. We have probably the biggest part of our book coming up over the next 6 months because of how it's worked. We're in the 10th year now. There's so many customers, and we're reaching out to them 7 months before now. I don't know if we touched on that, but 7 months.
Yeah, I think we did. Did you say 6 is the standard, but you try and do it a month?
But imagine that 7 months, Tom. I'm saying to someone 7 months before, which is if they've only had a 2-year fixed,
Yeah.
You're almost touching base.
Just about halfway through, isn't it?
They won't realise it's nearly 2 years, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
The industry is literally at the moment on kind of eggshells with customer expectations, managing their expectations, and then the market, which is unpredictable. And as a mortgage advisor, one job is to know the market, and no one can predict it at the moment. Not even get close, and no one would put their own life on it, no own money on it.
No.
And that's the scary thing. So
Tough, isn't it?
It was a great episode, and hopefully you've listened to it if you aren't to this one. What we're looking at now is kind of through education. So for brokers, it'll be brilliant because they can listen and learn new things and a different take on it. But for customers, this is aimed at people like you, Barry, no offence.
What's that?
Where the high level stuff that we'll talk and get lost in.
Yeah.
In a normal broker you would go high level and you talk and you'd use all your kind of terminology and jargon. We want to bust that. We want to kind of get rid of that. And what we want to do is make it kind of break it down, and that's your role you're playing. So this is going to be dead interesting. Thing about Tom, we're going to let Tom's going to pretty much take over this podcast, mainly because this is probably the only one I'll do where I'm not a specialist. And the reason for that is if I'm doing a self-build mortgage for someone, my job's easy. Mine is the numbers, it's the mortgage, and it's the affordability, just like any other mortgage. And we'll touch on that a little bit further. But then I pass it over to Tom because the self-build part, mortgage is my job. The self-build part is these specialists. And so this is going to be interesting because you're going to ask questions that I even don't know the answer to.
So you want me to jump in now on my first question before 100%. Tom gets into his
100%
bits? Are you sure?
100%.
So when you're saying you do the numbers, you're doing the numbers on the mortgage side, then what is it that you're doing, Tom? So from my point of view, as just being, as you would say, bog standard homeowner.
Yeah, if you take the difference between a standard residential mortgage, the vast majority of times you've just highlighted yourself, it's a rate-driven decision. There's sourcing systems, 3 major ones that brokers will use to help them through that journey. And it's about getting the lowest rate and the most competitive fees, and there's a total cost to pay as part of an advice process and compliance. When it comes to any construction project, it's actually more about cash flow than it is interest rates. And I suppose as a miserable Scotsman, I genuinely care about interest rates, but the reality is it's ensuring that the money arrives on site at the right time to pay the suppliers and professionals in a timely fashion. Because somewhere along this journey there is, it's not exempt from stress. There's a lot of decisions to take. There's a lot of processes to go through in constructing a new home or renovating or converting a barn or any type of construction project. But the focus that we have is more around ensuring that the cash flow is sufficient and that the customer has got the knowledge when the funds are going to arrive on site and how much is going to arrive on site.
So are you involved in sort of the advising and the decisions of how this should go about and what they should build and things like that? Are you involved in that side at all, or when did your role start? Like, when do you?
That's a great question, because our role is hand in hand with Paddy. It should be, as you've just mentioned, on the remortgage timescales, we should be as far up the river as the start of the journey. Because if we've got a customer arriving with a set of designs and drawings and plans and planning permission who has not yet spoke to their mortgage advisor about their budget, they may already have designed a project that they can't fund.
Yeah, so they could have skipped the main step, basically.
So it's actually inserting the finance at the start of the journey to ensure that the budget gets set. So that's a big part that Paddy will be involved in. How much can you afford to borrow? How much savings do you have? And it creates this large pot that becomes the budget. Now that either gets broken into 2 or 3 bite-sized pots. One of them is professional fees. Architects, engineers, site insurance, structural warranty, site investigation work. NEWTs, BAT surveys. then you've got legals and valuations. So there's a pot of cash that needs to be retained that comes away from the build cost. You've then got what's remaining. If you already own the site, it allows you that's the budget to build the house, and it should include contingency. Or if you're looking to buy a site, then you've got a budget that you have a good working knowledge of how much you can afford to pay for the land and how much you've got left for the build.
Yeah.
You know, you're then therefore sharing with an architect, or if you're using a package solution like some of the off-site manufacturers, you can say to them, that's my budget. Don't go designing a house that we can't bring in that budget. Rather than having a house designed and getting excited and carried away with design only to have it tempered when we work out that you can't actually afford to borrow enough to do that.
The best thing about that, Baz, is this podcast could be 10 podcasts on self-builds because your mind's going already. I can see it.
Well, I just think already, like, it's one of the most stressful times, isn't it? Just buying a house or just finding the house that you want. If you're then also having to think of all the fees, if the professionals are involved, then you budget to buy the land that it's going to sit on, then you budget for building a house. It's a massive thing, isn't it?
We haven't announced the myth yet.
Have we not? Sorry.
We haven't, but no, you're going to say the myth because we're going to bust it today.
Right.
You were just about to say you need a huge amount of deposit.
Well, yeah. Well, I just think you're going to...
That's the myth we're going to bust today.
So you're hold on. So you're saying that you don't need a massive deposit.
The myth we're busting is you need a huge deposit to build your own home. And what we're going to, I mean, the stress is part of the deposit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's a value of money that is going to affect you. It'll cost you a lot than just money. But I love what Tom said. Two things there is rates versus kind of simplicity and ease of gaining the money to be able to pay your tradesman. But that's why I see, and I say it to every single customer, don't see the interest rate or the monthly payment even as a mortgage payment, which sounds bizarre. See it as a cost towards the build, because that cost will accumulate and it could be over 2 years and it'll total an amount. It's impossible for me to calculate what it will be. We'll give it in stages, but things will happen where they'll need more or less than they would at a certain time. So there's no way to say in September next year you're going to pay this much a month. But what I like to do is say it's a cost. You wouldn't say, I want that tiler versus that tiler, or that joiner versus that joiner, because I want the cheapest, and I don't care about the quality.
No.
So it's a cost, because if you're not going to get to the end project, but you paid a nice cheap interest rate, I'm sorry you didn't build that self-build in the first place. And the second one is the whole 7 months thing, and I'll put this back to Tom. I said, I don't know how to avoid this because it's impossible, and this is probably going to help doing this podcast. And we're going to try and get some sort of trading style out there, or what we would class as a service, to attract people to us, because the majority of customers, if not, sadly, 75% of them have come to us too late. We've picked it up and ran with it, and we've got there in the end. But if they'd came to us 7 months before they were thinking about it, we could have prepared them, because sadly, they nearly always need us when they're running out of money. And if they're nearly running out of money, by the time we've got the funds in place, because it's not, you can't just do this like an auction and suddenly flip it. It does take that long, that it'll stall, and you could lose your builders. You could lose that tiler that you wanted because he has to go to his next job. The real key thing is how quickly you need to speak to people when it enters your head. And that's hard in this. How do I get that message out?
I think there will be a certain. I think the last 18 months have been fairly unprecedented in terms of what's going on in both the market and the world, with wars, Liz Truss, and a budget that caused lots of problems and increasing inflation. So it was almost a perfect storm. And then in line with that, because of those issues, with shortages in supplies of materials, which caused an escalation in build costs. So there would have been a number of customers who started out with what they thought was a sensible budget. But over that 18-month period, timber probably gone up by 70%. Plaster board went from £9 a board to £21 a board. There was an escalation. So those that are coming for you to get funds to finish a project, actually at the outside might not have thought they needed it. They just landed in a time period that meant these increases required.
So there's nothing
That
you can do
mortgage
to
to
catch
finish it
them
off.
preemptively because they didn't expect to be having to lend.
Many of them.
Yeah.
Many of them.
But they'll have all watched Grand Designs.
Yeah,
And I've never seen a smooth one.
But
well, yeah, and those are, I suppose, cherry-picked projects. It's a TV programme that highlights a sector, but I don't think it fairly reflects how smoothly this journey actually goes.
Okay.
So you're saying it goes smoother in real life?
But very much so.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because
very
it's
much so.
it's something that I would think to myself, right, well, if we're going to do it, I won't be like those other ones who get carried away. I won't be running out of funds and stuff like that.
But you'll be on site doing it yourself.
And that's it.
Well, and
But-
therein lies probably one of the biggest myths, Paddy, is the fact that self-build isn't really self-build.
Yeah.
You have the DIY enthusiast who will get involved in a project and perhaps in the trade. Bricklayers and electricians, so they'll take their element of it and perhaps have friends in the trade, so we'll be more involved. But it's probably less than 10% of the self-build community will actually get their hands dirty at any given time, and I definitely include myself in that.
Yeah.
And I'm barred from changing light bulbs in your house, so there's no way I'm involved in the build. What we do as a self-builder is we're involved in the design process. Maybe disillusioned by the fact that the current options available in the market delivered by the volume house builder isn't what we want.
Yeah.
And I wanted more garden space. I certainly was looking for better thermal performance, and I wanted a house for the first time that I wasn't going to compromise on. That was a big thing for me because I'd renovated property before. So you're always stuck within the fabric of the engineering of its time.
It's a blank
period.
canvas doing it.
Yeah. Starting afresh, committing to paper something that we wanted, and watching that coming out the ground is so empowering. And the financial benefits that are there. There's a number of benefits doing this. One of them's the quality of the home that you live in, reducing, we have the current issues around energy. Well, the vast majority of self-builds will run with a very modest cost because they're engineered. A lot of the self-build projects will use off-site manufacturing like timber frame or structurally insulated panels, insulated concrete form. And the fabric of the building creates that thermal performance that actually is so airtight you have to fit them with a set of lungs which help them breathe and circulate fresh air, but can be done so at a very modest running cost. So the aspiration to have a house that was more bespoke for our family needs, by default it had lower running costs. That wasn't actually an objective, but we're definitely the opposite of Grand Designs because we built on a budget. This wasn't a 300 square metre vast fancy property. This was a simplistic design, and it was designed simplistically to keep the cost down.
Yeah.
But it's not a self-build as such because I've never done anything. We appointed a group of people to do it.
So to your design, it's to your design specifications, but someone else has done it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the dream, isn't it, for everyone?
What would you
I'd
call
love
that? What would you call that if you had to name it something? Baz has got a Baz. Would they call it a banker Baz?
So if it's banker Baz and you're coming to me and you're saying,
What would you
I'm
call
not a
that
builder,
feature? Yeah.
what would I call it? And so what? So it's not self-build.
Quick, yeah.
You'll
get this as well. But.
I don't know if I will. I don't know. It's like third party, isn't it? It's like someone else build rather than self build. Someone else build, isn't it? It's
what about the word custom build? Would you like that?
Custom build, yeah. Right, it's custom. Yeah, it's bespoke build, something like that. Custom build.
Like
yeah.
bespoke
build's good, isn't it? Banker Baz bespoke build.
Yeah, there you go. So you can compete. With
but for me, it's a dream for everyone, isn't it? To think I can have whatever I want there. It's like if you anything at all. It's something that you've made to your thing, but. No one, very few percentages you say have got the skills or knowledge to be able to do it. So the majority of them are custom or bespoke builds rather than self-build, is what you say. Yeah.
So you've got the new build market. So we've got the 5 or 6 big volume house builders who, but they design and build the house, and I suppose just have to like what they build and you buy it.
Yeah.
You have the DIY self-builders who genuinely want to get their hands dirty, and there can be significant savings for people who do that.
Right.
That can really drive down the cost of the build. But I suppose that bigger middle ground is custom build. And in England, there's now primary legislation, the Self and Custom House Building Act of 2015, which is now there's now a requirement for every local authority in England to maintain a register of anyone, including us, to put your name on your local authority register, and it then has a requirement for that local authority to meet the demand that's on the registers. Now, on the most recent information, that if we take the sector, which probably in the past was delivering slightly more numbers, but we're probably between 10 and 12,000 units a year. We're probably as high as 15,000 at some point. But if you take that as a collective number, that's in the top 5 house builders in the UK as a collective group. So it's a reasonable number of houses.
So is that nationwide, do you mean?
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
okay. Right.
But if we compare it to mainland Europe, where Norway's up at 80%, and Germany at 50 or 60%, the Netherlands 25, 30%, we're at 9 to 10%. So we are right at the bottom end of using this model of delivery of housing as part of an option for customers in the UK.
So is that based on lack of land, or sort of how's building companies buying up all the land, or is it not? Is it just the attitude that people have got? You kind of think, well, I'm looking to get on the ladder, I'll have a look at what the new builds are that are just being built around here, or I'll have a look at what's going.
Yeah, I think over the last couple of decades, the perception that perhaps that's the only option that's available. And we'll go on to discuss. You highlighted, Paddy. Do you think a big deposit's needed? Many people are of the impression that this market really is for the third and fourth time well-heeled house mover or empty nester. Well, Build Loan and the work that they've done over the last 25 years have completely transformed that, and it's really about getting the message out, with products now providing 95% of the purchase price of the land and 95% of the build cost. Well, that changes the demographic of self-build. That's a first-time buyer product. Yeah. So there is no reason why, without the right amount of the land and the planning, that land and planning and finance were always thrown up in the air as these 3 hurdles to achieving this. Well, I don't think now that finance is really one of them, because there's such a wide range of support now in products. Planning definitely has its challenges, and it's probably under-resourced. Land, well, let's see what the legislation is doing, because there are now over 60,000 people on the registers in England. And if we're doing 10, 12,000 a year, quite clearly there is going to be a reasonable uplift in the number of planning permissions consented. And custom build homes data, who are a serious player in the sector, their data already has told us that there's a significant increase in planning permissions in the pipeline. Now, will we ever volumise it through the one-off, like me buying a plot or doing this on your own? Well, perhaps not, but custom build is how we'll volumise it. And what we've now seen is through private landowners, one-time developers, local authorities, housing associations, and the house builders themselves adopting custom build as part of the planning solution. So we mentioned Grand Designs, that they've run, I think, 3 series now called The Street.
Yes.
So the street looked like 10 houses on a street being built together. When the first one was a development called Graven Hill, which is up to 1,800 plots. That'll end up probably about a mixed tenure development. But with York Council's delivered 6 with custom built homes, Durham Council, and we're now seeing through the planning authorities now using allocation policies. Some of them have an allocation policy where if they're allowing a volume house builder a site for 300 units, they'll perhaps have a 5% policy that says, there has to be so many plots made available, similar to what they would have done previously on affordable housing. We're giving you 300.
Would that be if I'm a developer, in effect, I bought a massive plot, and like say 300 houses are planned, I then have to give 5 plots away to yourself to build your own?
Well, either not necessarily to yourself, but to an enabler. Some of them may do it themselves through time, or make it available through an agent. So there's going to be plots available as part of larger house building sites.
Explain the the custom build, Baz, is if I'll let you run this, Tom, but it's basically all the hard bits of getting water, electric to the property, and you've got that footprint, I presume.
Yeah, so
the plan with a footprint.
Well, that's if it's going this way.
So you almost buy, and Tom, please correct me. You almost buy a foundation ready. And you're going to put up the frame brickwork, and then obviously the internals, logistics, you can.
Because you'll have like the access rights and all that kind of thing, won't you? That'll all be there for the plot, in fact.
Yeah, the legislation really drills down into what has to be delivered to qualify as a custom built site. So, roads, services on the plot. The plot is defined, and there are a variety of, and it will evolve further, but there'll probably a variety of delivery solutions. Some of them use a model called golden brick, where the slab's already in, the foundations are in.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
There may be a blank canvas model where the superstructure goes up, but you're involved in the layout of the house, so you've still got primary. The key is that you have primary design input.
Compared to just turning up and looking at a show home and saying this is what you get, we did it when we first had kids and we were looking to move house then, and we went and looked at one and it looks amazing on the photographs. You get there and then, as you say, garden wasn't big enough, house wasn't big enough, rooms weren't big enough, it wasn't laid out in a way that would benefit us in effect, and you're stuck, aren't you? It's not like when you are and you
aren't, because that's a big part.
You are, unless you look at custom.
So let's say that you purchase that property. The house you have. I know you've looked at at extensions and stuff like that. And this is what we could myth bust. These are misconceptions. You've got a property already built. It's a house, but you're thinking, I'd love to put an extension on there, and I'd love to do this, and I'd love to do that, and maybe build up on here. But you don't have the equity. So your house is worth 100 grand. The mortgage is at 90. You can't do all that with 5 grand. So you then either have to use savings, which you don't have, borrow money off family, or you can do what I would call a self-build on that property that already exists. So
even though you've got a mortgage on the house originally.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the biggest myths again, and it's probably bad from a point of view. We have already been talking about self-build mortgages. In fact, what they are is stage payment mortgages that can be used for self-build, the more entrepreneurial on your own type, custom build, which is a tranche, it's a suite of products specifically for that model. There's renovation mortgages, conversions, so converting a barn. So we have queue planning. It's a part of the planning system, which allows you to take an agricultural dwelling to a residential home for the first time under permitted development rights.
Right.
But
is that a new thing?
It's been around for quite some time.
Right.
And they can bring to life some of the most beautiful properties.
I bet,
But it's the same lenders, products. What changes is the cash flow. Because if you think of a ground up, there's an opportunity that a point is going up in value. When you're renovating or extending or converting, you're just destructing to begin with. Taking roofs off. That scenario that you've mentioned is one that, and again, a lot of mortgage brokers, Paddy, you don't know what you don't know. That scenario, your house is worth 300,000, it's got a mortgage of 270, but rather move. The kids are at school, we don't, their friends are in this area, we don't want to move yet, but we'd like to add a significant extension or a wraparound. The high street lenders have got you restricted to its current value, and there's not enough equity, as you said, Paddy. The stage payment mortgage lenders that Build Loan have and partner with are focusing on the end value of the project when it's completed. So that scenario of a 95%, well, we can go to 95% of the current value, which pays off the current lender and puts a slice of money into the pot. And then we can give you up to 95% of the build costs of the renovation and the extension of the house, the loft conversion, underpinned against the end value up to 85% of that. So suddenly, someone who might think I've got 15,000 to do a small extension actually could do something far more significant.
Absolutely.
Because the products are underpinned against the end value.
Right.
Now, probably if we go back to the sourcing systems we touched earlier on, one of the biggest challenges, I suppose, for mortgage brokers is to simply tell you about interest rates. And there's a tick box that says self-build. But what it doesn't tell you is cash flow.
Right.
What it doesn't tell you is construction methods, cladding, all the things that why Paddy engages with Patrick at Build Loan is that real detailed technical knowledge of the lender's criteria to get the cash flow right. So the market originally evolved through what's probably an outdated system in my view now called valuation-based lending in arrears. And that does what it says on the tin. You pay for the stage and a Chartered Institute valuer comes out and revalues. And if the value goes up, you get money back. If the value doesn't go up, you don't get money back. Now, if you're stripping a property, not only will it not go up, it's going to go down. And do you know when it will go back up? Well,
and when do they do the valuation then?
So at the start, Build Loan converted all of the lending partners to cost-based lending quite some time ago now. So that created guaranteed stage payments.
Right.
So there are cost-based lending in arrears. So if you've got the money to pay for the stage, but you need to know that you get your money back, then cost-based arrears can work. If you want the money before the stage begins, so it might be a choice, or it might be a requirement of your payment terms. So a good example of that would be those off-site manufacturers that I spoke about, timber frame, ICF, oak. They're typically 10% to design the superstructure, 40% or so to put it into the factory for production, and most of them are the balance before it leaves the factory.
So it all needs paying
front end loaded.
Yeah, right.
That's why we designed the accelerator mortgage. It's an advanced stage, so you get the money for the stage before it starts. So what the valuer does is they tell us the plot value on day one, they tell us the end value when it's finished, and they'll do that from the plans.
Okay.
In between, all the problems that tend to happen will come from the valuer coming out and not increasing the site value in line with the cost of the project.
Right.
Now, what's actually the tangible impact of that? And I know, having gone through the journey, what happens is if I can't pay my tradespeople when I'm supposed to pay them, I run the risk of them going off site. And it's not that they don't come back the following week, they might not come back for 12 weeks because they'll go and do a job.
Of course.
With someone else who won't
one, of course.
The ability to meet your payment terms, so the manufacturers, even more, a great phrase that I get told is when you're in a project, every day is a pay away day. It might be to your contractor or your suppliers or to a solicitor. It might be actually you need to go down to the builder's merchant to ensure that materials are on site. Now, custom build's far less problematic from that point of view because it's more of a developer-led proposition. You'll have a contractor in most instances, and you just have set payment terms to them. That will be contracted. But I don't want a valuer coming out and not increasing the value, and I can't meet my contractual terms. The cost-based lending model is completely taking that risk away. And from an advisor, Paddy, there might be a podcast in its own on consumer duty, but the cross-cutting rules and outcomes, avoiding foreseeable harms, then the client not getting the money on site to pay people is a huge foreseeable harm.
Of course,
And one of the biggest ways to mitigate that risk is just guaranteeing the stage payments.
So I find it hard to get my head around. I was thinking of it there while we were talking. Like, even if you're going to buy a car, you're getting a loan on something that's there still, something that's physical. I know you're not telling them exactly which car you're buying, but you're going out to buy something physical. When you're talking about this, you're buying something that's not here, something that's yet, you don't know how it's going to go. Is it going to be worth that much more? And
you'll know that from the valuer at the start.
This is it. This is it. I didn't think.
Well, even from me, because imagine someone coming to me and saying, "This is what I want to do, Paddy. Is it possible?" Not a chance I can see this. We would go to Patrick and.
So this is where you were saying this is right.
Support,
right.
But also, it's when so we collect all the documents, we get the plans in, the architects send in the costings. You send it on to Build Loan. This is the part I love. Is they will pass it to their internal QS quantities, and they'll.
I know what QS is. I do actually. No, that's probably the one thing I do know.
I'll let you off, yeah.
Go on.
And then they will scrutinise it. Yeah, and they'll also imply. So if you said I'm a plasterer, I'm going to do my own. They'd say, but what if you break your leg? We've got to build in for that
bit of risk in there.
Yeah, of course.
Right,
So that that's great because these guys aren't just doing it and they've turned up day one and looking at the spreadsheet. They're doing it from experience.
Yeah.
If you've got Tommy who's running as the business development manager for the company, and he's done it himself and he knows what to do and what not to do.
So
you've got specialists, and this isn't something that you can just look at rates. So I am pathetic in this process. All I do is rely on Bill, and luckily, every single time they're on it, and I've never been disappointed. What they will be frustrated is the build. That is stressful.
Of course.
It goes without saying. But the fact that people come to me and look at rates, I wouldn't even look at rates. What I will do is probably work on the worst rate, and I'll budget on that.
But how does that work then? Your client, so they come to you first in effect. So I come to you and I say, look, I've seen this plot of land. Or well, I've seen this plot of land. I want to get someone to build on here for us.
Yeah.
I come to you. Do you then pass me to Tom, and then do I just liaise with?
So you'll say, this is what I want to do. Buy that land and build. So I'd say, right, forget that you're buying land and buying property. I'll do a fact find. I'll chat to you. What's your name?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you live? What do you do for a living? How much money do you have? And we'll talk about budget and affordability. And if that fits, like we've said, like it would a first-time buyer.
But you don't know that it fits until you've...
It fits the mathematical sense.
Okay, all right, okay.
You've got $5,000 in your bank.
Mm-hmm.
You want to buy a plot of land that's worth $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You don't have another $5,000, but your family's there to support you.
Mm-hmm.
We can then move on.
Right.
Yeah. But it still boils down to, can you get a mortgage?
Mm-hmm.
Ignore the self-build. It's, can you get a mortgage? We're looking at affordability. The good thing is, no one goes in, and this is absolutely true, no one goes into a self-build at the stage of saying, I can just afford to buy and build it. It's never the case, because you're obviously going to build a bigger house with a lot of equity in it. So it's never just like with a normal mortgage where you kind of you're spending every penny and having a mortgage up to the hilt. What we're looking for, and I like to see it as more, we're building a pot of cash that they can have to use as development. They might not need to use it all.
Yeah,
but it's there.
Yeah. But I still can't get in my head is who's advising me in effect as to, well, if you go this way with the fabrication of the materials, or if you go with that, are you as build loans
supporting Paddy through all the technical parts? So we actually have a platform called Unicus that the mortgage broker has registered and signed up to. So it's a research platform that will dovetail into Paddy's creating key facts illustrations. That provides, first of all, the fact find that asks all the right questions.
Right.
So a general mortgage fact find and a construction one are very different, because we want to know the type of superstructure that you're planning to use. We want to know about the cladding that you're putting on the outside of the house.
So they need to have all that already.
Yes.
And you would.
Would you? Is that's what I was wondering?
So you've already got designs from your architect.
Right, so that's all been done, right? Okay, that's what I couldn't kind of get. I didn't know if you were offering some of that as well, or if it's more just the fund. Is it just the funding of it?
It's kind of part of the project. So if you just had a pipe dream of, I want to build my own home, and start looking for land, absolutely, you'd be too early for me and Patrick, but we can work with you. Patrick will, when you've nailed down, I'm going to build this type of property, work for him. That's where I wouldn't even get involved, waste my time, because what is the point when he's the specialist and he knows it inside out, day by day.
So there is at least a basic spec of what you're going to do, which plot of land, how big the land is, where it's at, all that stuff comes in, and then
It's a very technical piece of advice, because the criteria for each lender differs. There are a number of things, not so much around the superstructure, but the cladding. The architect will have a brief and create a design, not necessarily with mortgageability in mind. So they will create something often pretty spectacular. But I've got projects that were SIP superstructure with black Tata steel all over the walls and the roof, because adjacent to it was a black steel barn, and the planning department wanted to look the same. What we're doing is, as Paddy's completing the fact find with the client, and they're telling us about the land ownership, they're telling us about the planning, they're telling us about the superstructure and the cladding, is actually working through creating a list of lenders who will support
Right.
or
Okay.
won't support, because part of your criteria takes that lender out of the equation. And it might be a loan to value thing, or it may be a cladding issue, it may be that it's more than 10 acres, or it's adjacent to a family member. Again, back to the sourcing systems, Paddy, they don't tell you any of this stuff.
No.
So the Unicus platform is the knowledge hub, I suppose, that filters it all and gives Paddy a list of lenders who then meet the cash flow.
So it's a bit like when you said in the past, if you're a certain person in a certain role, there'll be other lenders that are more beneficial to you, right? Okay.
And that's what it is. We need to work on your budget first, because you need to know if I'm looking for land and I want to build, how much can I afford in land? How much can I afford to build costs? And what type of property will that get me? Because then you'll go back to your drawing board and think, this is my dream.
Yeah.
And then we can start working on it. That's why 7 months probably isn't even long enough.
No. What would you say would be a beneficial time period?
Well, it depends what stage they're at. So if they're looking for land, they might want that early budget setting, so we've got a process to do that for them. If they're looking for land, the plot search is part of the group. So that's probably one of the best land finding platforms, because everything that's on it has got planning permission. So it's a great way, and you can search by county and by budget. Okay. So that's helpful. We set the budget. When you find the right project, or they may already own it, we're then talking about the design and the cash flow. But Paddy's right, when it comes in as an application with the planning permission, etc., and that platform will give you access to it as a customer.
All right, okay.
So you'll get a request for documents, you can upload them straight into the platform. But then, Paddy's right, it goes into an independent team of build specialists, because this is about finishing a house, not just organising a mortgage. That's where we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
That's where the lenders unharmed. That's where the customer's dreams came to life. The advisor's process is finished, and actually, there's another stage after that point. So we then do all the cost analysis. And Paddy's right. There might be a point of negotiation there that says, "Can you explain to us why this appears to be low?" Well, actually, I've pre-bought the materials. That's why I haven't included them. Already have them. My family own the kitchen business, so I'm at cost.
Get that right, okay.
But it's right that we have the discussion and not just assume that they're low because the client can do it cheap. It's having a robust budget plus contingency.
I was going to say, do you have any contingency? Because as you say, if someone's getting something on the cheap and then that goes bust.
It's a great point.
So you have like...
if it's a fixed price with a main contractor, then you don't need contingency, any overruns carry. If you're a very experienced contractor, it could be 10, 15%. Anything other than that, 20%, I don't think is unreasonable at the moment, considering what's just gone on the last 18 months with the sort of volatility and fluctuations in prices. So we build that in, and then having agreed that gets modelled into a cash flow. That's a major part of the support we provide advisors, because we can actually graph out to show, is it valuation based, is it cost based arrears, is it advanced, which one of them keeps the client in a positive cash flow all the way through. That then gives us a list of lenders that keep the client in a positive cash flow, and it's then finding the best rate.
Right.
Only once the cash flow is right. But part of consumer duty is then about the broker's processes. Well, there's quite a process to go yet. It's probably 18 months still to go. So there's producing the offer, but it's build loan that do all the stage releases through the portal. So you have a warranty providers coming out at each stage. They sign off the stage is completed. They upload the document and they say it's completed, and we trigger the next stage release to the customer. So we've offloaded that responsibility from the broker, who needs to be off writing business to another, making the business profitable.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're holding the customer's hand all the way through their stage release. There's a customer service department who do a fabulous job, because they're talking to the client about their project regularly. How's the stage gone? Want to know? You could send us images of it. But really, what's important is: are you on time? Are you on budget? Do we need early intervention? Because we work really closely with our lending partners. There's 60 plus products that we have exclusively, and we're working closely with the lenders on the design of the products, but also on how we manage the funding and the distribution of it. So we can help the client during it, if slightly over at one point where you've got contingency.
Right. So it's not a case of it being a rigid sort of structure of you get your initial payment here, you get your fees to pay for the land here, and you get your fees for the build there. It's not like you're saying that things can be adjusted as you go along, and
hopefully don't need to, because if we've all done a job well, it does well.
Right.
If you're doing it alone, then you get those shocks. It's preparing you. There'll still be a shock at the time, but you
going
guys
direct to a lender, those are the sort of challenges you face.
I suppose what I'm meaning is even if you're looking at it up front, you're not saying month 1 you get this amount, month 5 you get this amount, month 10 you get this amount for everyone. What you're saying is on this build here, it's going to take a bit longer, so
no two are the same.
Yes, that's what I mean. So it's all
we cash flow the model for every project individually.
So it's custom funding for custom builds.
Every single project. Right, okay. Yeah, and of course, as we approach the end of the build, we're back in touch with Paddy to say the client's coming to the end of the build program. They need another mortgage review because the product will either allow a product transfer, or if it doesn't have an early repayment charge, Paddy's taking you back to the high street again.
Yeah. So what happened? What happens then?
So we'll leave that for your question.
All right, okay.
Because we've got 15 minutes left. We've got a keen interest in not letting these go over an hour.
Yeah.
Mortgages are definitely not that interesting. But the myth we're busting is you need a huge deposit. Okay.
Right. So.
And you've got 3 questions. I'm going to pinch one.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm just going to ask you very quickly. You need to come back to that question because it's a very good question. Okay. Tom, you built your own house.
Yeah.
You live in it. Would you do it again?
100%, but there is absolutely no chance that I'll get a plot of land at the price that I stole the land left gone. Because we had just finished, we'd finished the renovation of what was going to be our long-term home, and I got the opportunity to buy a plot of land. And I think, if memory serves me right, there was a liquidation for a small developer that created the opportunity, and we took that opportunity, not knowing yet what we were going to build. So that then is into design phase. And very fortunate with local trades. It's one of the things I think is quite important to highlight. This is a sector that supports local trades, supports local merchants. Keeps business locally, and I think that's important to highlight.
And when was this you did this?
Project 20 years ago now.
Oh, okay.
And we've changed the property numerous times because the flexibility we used timber frame was there was Sean and Michael in the house at the time, and then Kira came along, so our dining room became a bedroom. And then Michael left and Kira got a bedroom and we got a dining room back, and then Connor arrived and it's grand designs, isn't it? It's just,
go back.
There's just children keep around. And then even quite recently we did a remodel of the back third because Sean had gone. So we're down to 2 children in the house and 3 bedrooms. And we probably did what, in hindsight, I should have done first time, was create a big open plan kitchen dining area. And I worked with a firm, Macy Architects, and they not only designed it, got our planning, but Anne couldn't quite visualise what it would look like, and therefore wasn't ready quite to commit to it, I don't think. And Alan Corfield had us up to their studio and put a set of VR goggles on. And we walked through it when it was finished.
But that's amazing, that.
And it's incredible. And that's where technologies move forward.
Yeah, of course.
You're not looking at a set of architect's drawings now.
It's hard to tell
walk
even
through
just
the
from
house completed.
Even from a 3D graphic, a static graphic, it's hard to tell, isn't it? But you can do that and actually look.
Gives you an awareness of space and things. That's where the technologies
You should get yourself to the Grand Designs events or the Grand
exhibitions.
Yeah, they're brilliant. I've been at one of the Excels in London.
Right,
and they've got it all there, and you can check it out.
So you said that you would do it. You do it again.
Yeah.
Like pressure, stress, weight on your sort of your home life, your family life, all that kind of thing. How did that compare to I say just buying a house, to buying a house, say buying your first house? How is it? To me, it's a pipe dream because obviously,
is it worth?
It's something. Yeah, exactly. You think it's going to be really expensive. You think,
but nothing more than excitement for me. I
really?
know that people can get stressed because there's so lots of decisions to take, and that's sometimes what creates the stress.
Of course,
the volume of decisions. If you're not custom building, where there's more can be a prescribed process. But the excitement of watching it. There was a bit of a visual roller coaster because so excited I'd be down at the site every night, and when the slab went in, I was saying, look guys, we need to stop because the house isn't going to be big enough. This is too small. And they went, do me a favour, stay away. come back in a week, and a week later the timber frame's up. I was like, oh, that's
So is that just because of your perception of not actually being stood in the room?
Yeah.
You're just looking.
It's a plot of land, then the foundations go in, which don't look big enough, and then the frame goes up. It was absolute excitement. There was a bit of frustration at the end because there was a connection delay, and we'd eventually do a road crossing to solve it. So that delayed us literally a couple of weeks. The build was 6 months. So again, contrary to TV programs, these can happen really efficiently, particularly if you work with a building contractor and offset manufacture system. It's really quick.
So when you got the go-ahead for the land, or when you found that plot of land, how long between that and actually being in it?
Planning permission took a few months. Planning, again, can be problematic.
Yeah, of course,
And we were relative, I think we were 3 or 4 months for planning.
Right.
And then by that time, I had a local company that I knew well, timber frame manufacturer, Moore Mulhern. They scoped out a design with us. And I had local trades doing some landscape, block work. The vast majority of the Moore Mulhern had their individual subbies that did the work for us. So it worked really smoothly. And to this day, I still remember the first night we moved in, because our renovation house was literally a stone's throw from the railway line in the station. And it just became a background noise.
Yeah, I bet.
But the efficiency of the house that we then built, it was the silence. The first night we were in it, it was absolutely silent. And it's without the best thing. You know, financially, it was incredibly important, I think, that we did it. It was worthwhile. And something worth highlighting, we talk about these professional fees, which seemed like a bit of a burden, but your stamp duty is only applicable on the plot.
All right, okay, right.
So if the house is 600,000 when it's finished, you're not paying stamp duty on 600,000 on a plot of 150. You're not paying any stamp duty.
Right.
And
it's all these little like sort of tips and tricks that you don't.
It is, but I'd also say this is why your 19, 20-year-old who's moving in together for the first time don't go through this, because you've got to be a certain maturity, and you've also got to be you've got to have a thick skin.
You've got to have a vision as well. You've got to have a bit of long-term.
But back to custom build, it takes a lot of that away. So
it
custom build is the middle ground, which is actually probably going to be, them percentages are crazy, 80% versus 10, and we know the countries we're talking about. They're beautiful. It's not like they've just let people just go crazy and just stick up whatever they want. So
that's the thing. It's all governed. It's still governed, isn't it? It's got to be within the environment.
Give us your last
question.
If it's not, can I have an appointment to renovate my own home? I'll be disappointed.
I wasn't going to do it in front of you because I thought I might get it cheap if I collared him on the way out.
Eleanor set this up.
Well, to be honest, it's something we've always. I think every family or every homeowner probably dreams of it, don't they?
What's your last question, Baz? Go on. We'll finish on that.
What happens next? Once you've done all your bits, it goes back to Paddy. So I've done it, right? I've come to you. I've said I've seen this plot of land. I've gone to Paddy. I've got all my drawings and everything. He then looks at it, sees if he can do the numbers, passes it on to you. You've done all of your bits. It's getting all the funding right the way through. Everything's gone well ahead of target, cheaper than what we thought. I'm done. I'm in it. What happens next? What I'm trying to say is it just back to the same as I've just had, a remortgage?
So pass back to
Paddy. So the product design team at Buildloan, I think, are probably one of the key success stories of its whole journey, because they're creating the products. The lenders provide the pots of money. So it's quite interesting. We've never mentioned interest rates. You started, Paddy, by saying this isn't about interest rates. There's not been a question about it, because it's not. It's about cash flow and getting the process and the safety of the journey right. Towards the end of it, so during it, it's interest only. So all of our lending partners, there's a concession of interest only during the build.
Okay.
So that keeps the cost down. You're only paying for what you take at each stage. So you might have a £300,000 facility.
That's what I was going to say.
But if you take £25,000 for the foundations, you've only got an interest only payment of £25,000.
Right.
And all of the lending partners have given us a concession that at the end of the build, when you get the completion certificate, you either get a product transfer onto a standard residential rate from that lender, or if it doesn't have an early repayment charge, Paddy's taking you back to the best lender in the marketplace, because it's no longer a self-build. There are lenders out there who keep you tied onto the self-build product. Don't think that's I don't think that's fair.
It's no longer a self-build,
No,
is
it's
it?
not. Get you onto the standard product.
So
And that's where Paddy comes back in.
In summary, you could end up with two properties. In one dimension, you went off and you bought that property which perfectly fit what you needed, which would have cost X amount of money.
Yeah.
Or you bought a plot of land with a much lower deposit, lower stamp duty. You've used less money. Well, you used a sum of money to develop it, and then you end up with an end value. Your mortgage, in theory, and the reason that people do this, unless they're going extravagant, of course, you would have a lower mortgage, a bigger gap of equity, and therefore a lower product, loan to value. So the difference between the two, there's 2 years apart. So you move in this one today, this one you can't move in until 2 years because it's taken that long to build, for example. That's the difference. Is you've almost invested in that property yourself from day one, and you've turned it. A lot of hard work. You've got to put price on that, but I would be excited. Not everybody would.
Well, I mean, the stress in having a house that you're not happy with. And
Or
feeling
inheriting a property. People inherit property all the time. Go, I don't like it. Don't like the way that is. Don't like the way that is. And it's like we can work with it. And that's the fascinating thing. And I think the education from this.
So would that be like start from scratch with it?
It would just be like a renovation mortgage. Still self-build.
Or it could be a knockdown rebuild.
Knockdown rebuild.
The value, it's an opportunity.
So that's still classed as a custom build or a self-build, isn't it? Really, it's still same thing. Obviously, you've got the extra costs of getting rid of the old one, but
it was demolition costs.
It's all part of it, and it's kind of within that framework. But what I mean is, you don't have to think we've had another child, we need to move. We don't need to be thinking because there's stamp duty, there's legal costs, there's the cost of moving, and obviously the next house is going to be a lot more expensive because you're moving up. But you can do that. Like there's a rule of thumb, and I wouldn't want to throw it out there, but if you're going to, Alice is renovating her kitchen, but if she wanted to buy a property and move that had a perfect kitchen, you would think it would cost more in terms of the total house value. Same house, better kitchen. The amount that she'll spend to do the kitchen, you would expect to be in a new house that's already there double because you don't have the hassle of doing it. And the beauty of buying a bit of land for 100 grand, spending 50 grand on doing bits and bobs on it, you would expect to increase that value more than you've spent. So you're not going to end up with, I've spent this much buying the land, I've spent this much doing the work, that's the value. It won't. You'll have created.
So is that when you're saying, say, 1500 or 150, 100, whatever, that would be the estimated figure from the, you were saying you do it in advance, an advance payment, whatever it was. But then when the house is built, are you saying that it's probably going to be worth more than you?
And I think you're very.
You see what I mean?
I wouldn't say pessimistic. It's not the right word, but you're cautious. And it's a very educated, calculated. And these guys that are doing this have done it for years and years and years, and then they know what to expect. The tiniest thing could affect fluctuations, but the end value is to you will be priceless because you've got your perfect property. But you've created that equity, so you actually end up on a much cheaper product than you would have if you'd have bought. I mean, obviously you can't count the timescales of rates changing and things like that. But to me, it's my dream. It's one of my biggest regrets of not doing with the property I'm in now. And I remember sitting. I don't know if you and Stu were presenting it down in Liverpool there.
Yeah.
I remember sitting, going, "Oh, I was in the middle of doing this, and we'd done it ourselves, and then wait till the end to." That was stressful because we ran out of money. And we should have done things differently. And I remember thinking, why did I not sit here 2 years ago?
Actually, in terms of myths, because we are bursting myths, it's one of the few occasions where you're allowed to have two residential mortgages at the same time.
Right.
So you could stay in your own home, and that small deposit, the 5-10% type deposit products, means you don't have to sell your current house to get the equity out and go and rent or live with family or go in a caravan on site.
Yeah.
If you stay in your own, have an interest-only self-build mortgage to buy the plot and build, and then sell your current house and move into the new one. That transitions. So you can do it that way.
Because a lot of people think caravan on site.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
No, you don't have to.
That's the one reason we didn't do it, because when we were moving home, I was like, I don't want to live with either set of our parents for the next 18 months while we build a house, basically. But
So someone once said to me they'd lived in a caravan in one project and they'd lived with their in-laws in the other project. One was a bitter cold experience and one was a caravan.
Probably.
On that note, I think that's a perfect note. I love that.
Can I just ask one really quick one?
Go on then.
When we've gone through residential mortgages and stuff,
we've
been through, as in, like, I come to you, you say the rate's 3%, that's held for X amount of time, blah blah blah. Been through all that. When it comes to this, you're releasing, say, 3 payments over a long time. What happens with the interest rate? If I come to you and on the day,
well, it depends on the product we've given, which would be impossible to really answer. But the rate.
But is every release of money have a different rate? Is what I'm meaning.
It could, if it was on a variable or a discount, of course. But if we chose a fixed product, then it would be the same rate all the way up. What people don't get is, don't think of it, because you can't guess next Christmas when you're thinking, should we go on holiday for Christmas, to get out of the way, what that monthly payment would be. Impossible to tell, because that frame might get delayed, the payments, all those different factors make it. So it's impossible. What we need to look at is the overall worst case cost.
Yeah.
Because at the end of that project, that's how much you have spent. And you've got to be able to afford it.
So this is what I mean. If I said to you 300 grand, say I needed altogether, if you're releasing that in 3 lots of 100 grand, and in the meantime, between giving me the first lot at 3%, then when I come for the second release,
it's based on your offer.
That would still be 3% again.
Based on your offer.
Right. Unless we chose a product.
This is what I mean. So I'm wanting that whole pot of money, but I'm only taking little bits out at a time.
Yeah.
That's all at that initial rate.
The obvious reason you wouldn't take it all out is because, well, for one, you wouldn't be allowed to, because you could disappear on a really long holiday. But it's more about, you'd just be paying interest on something you didn't need.
I know. I was just kind of thinking of the whole thing. When all the interest rates went right up and stuff like that. If you get it at a decent rate, would that affect me?
No, but it would affect the exit strategy. So when it comes to
because then it'll be higher.
My mortgage that I'm creating, that would have been a lot different to how it was at the beginning. But like any mortgage advisor, you factor that in.
Yeah.
And do you know what? When they're finished, then imagine all they're paying is a mortgage payment, and not paying a builder, a plasterer, every single day. Because that's a great point you made about every day you're paying a bill. And that's just popping to B&Q to grab another pot of payment. It's fascinating, and you'll not know what will happen to your bank statements, because you'll not have all those. It'll just be suddenly mortgage, bills, life.
I don't think there's been a better time, Baz, to do this.
Right.
So if you think about the residential market 2 years ago, where interest rates were at 1.25%, well, self-build was 4.5% to 5.5%.
Right.
But it's regional building societies who operate off their own standard variable rate. They don't track the Bank of England. The residential market's now at 5.5% circa. The self-build market is between 5.99 and 7%ish, but there's an interest-only concession. Right. So the two of them are not too dissimilar rate-wise, but you're only on the product temporary. You've got the stamp duty, the exemption, the stamp duty only on the plot, and it's exempt from VAT. So at the end of the build, the contractor doesn't charge, you shouldn't charge you VAT, but any materials you bought that you paid VAT on, you have the opportunity to claim that back within 90 days of moving in. So there's a chunk of money comes back in, which Paddy needs to know about as part of his remortgage strategy, to allow that money to come in. That might also be the equity from the sale of your home. You're right, you might end up with a lower loans value.
So much.
Honestly,
so many benefits.
We could. There's so many myths. When we were looking at the type of myth we're going to talk about, there's so many. This is just one, and I hope, and it would be really good if we could do this again.
Yeah, definitely. I would really enjoy that.
Obviously, it's brilliant to go into the normal market within self-employed and delve in that, but I think the self-build one is, it's people aren't educated about it, and I'm not, and I've learned things, and my mind's went off on a tangent about 10 times in this, because I'm thinking, right, actually,
you know how hard it is to be me in these podcasts now.
But
I'd love to get your questions.
I'd love to get some back. But I think
definitely,
the point being is we've busted that myth. You certainly don't need a huge deposit. You could argue you need a smaller deposit for the similar type of dream than you would to buy your own home. And I think that's just something that needs to be said, needs to be heard, not for everybody. Buying a first home isn't for everybody. Some people need to go and do their thing, And I just think that's a fantastic way to introduce self-builds. And we could do this on custom, we could do it on just stage payments. We could do it on the process, the planning, the exit strategy. That's fantastic.
Brilliant.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Hopefully it's been helpful.
Till next time, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Do the usual share, grief, Barry, and give us some comments on, and especially if you can give us times and stamps and dates when Barry made mistakes, that'd be brilliant. And don't forget.
Don't forget.
Oh, he's not going to put it in. What do you normally do?
If you want any design work, becreativecumbria.co.uk. Any graphic design, any website work, or anything like that.
Promotion, but we
Totally forgot to say that. Yeah, brilliant. Can't believe it. That's how invested I was. How invested I was in the episode. Yeah.
Right, till next time, guys.
See ya.
Take care.